key things here are Bluetooth, one-to-one technology.
Exactly.
Blecon, 1, 2, however many. Currently today, you have protocols and steps that you have to go through to get to your cloud from your sensor. Every time you do that, there's the potential for security issues. But if you only use one protocol platform, whatever you call it, you stop all of that. Hello IPXers. Yet again, we're at Embedded World, where we search out disruptive technology. We're trying to find how companies present disruptive different ways as to how you can solve the legacy designs you've got today and try something new, build much, much better, more efficient devices. We know today there are approximately maybe going to be 45 billion devices in the world connected to the internet in IoT. They're moving around 80 zettabytes of data. I don't even know what that means. I think that's a made up word. I've never heard of zettabytes. Anyway, the point is design engineers have got to at some point collect data. Then at some point they've got to move that data to where it's got to be. The cloud, wherever that destination is. In order to do that, today in the legacy world, there's lots of part platforms that you've got to move through, lots of protocols that you've got to move through. This company, Blecon, that we've met today at Embedded World in North America, they're saying to you, actually, you could do this from start to finish with just one platform. Don.
Hello.
Dan.
Yeah. We were keeping it on purpose.
I will keep up at some point. Start and explain to us the journey that you take all that away, which has been around for a long while. All of those things have existed for 20 years. And you're saying, don't worry about that. Do it our way. Over to you.
No, absolutely. Thank you. And as you said, Bluetooth's been there for a while. It's been massively successful. It's in all the devices we own, pretty much, like our cars, our phones, our watches. But in the B2B world, it's been extremely difficult to use. And so a lot of our customers, they come to us because they're interested in using Bluetooth to gather data from their devices, gather physical data that they need to inform a product or an application. But they can't do it because, as you said, you have to jump through a lot of different hoops, a lot of heterogeneous technologies that don't play.
I'm not repeating that word because I can't.
Don't ask me to repeat it either.
Yep, keep going. Sorry.
So they have to jump through different technologies which don't naturally play very well together. So in the sort of consumer world of Bluetooth, things work pretty well because we have a model where maybe I have my mobile phone and it's connected to my personal devices, and that works pretty well with pairing, which people hate, but provides you security within your sort of immediate environment.
And it does work, and we do understand it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think Bluetooth's been pretty good in terms of the branding side of things, so people recognize the Bluetooth technology and how it works. But when you start building applications where you're trying to send data from a range of devices which are in various places, which can be as tiny as those things, then you start hitting problems.
So those are sensors. Those are
those are little modules that you would add into your device.
Yep.
And then you can have that's an actual sensor, which is made by an OEM in China in volume.
Yeah. So there's a sensor collecting data.
Exactly. And imagine having millions of those.
Millions of these.
Not just one.
Yep. No.
And you just don't so you can't you can't have as a person you can't be connected to that all those million sensors from your phone. That's completely unrealistic. So
that's where we're going in the world.
Absolutely, right.
That's where we're going. Yep.
So you have something like distributed network where you want to be able to have a lot of mobile phones or laptops or dedicated gateways that can connect to any of those sensors and then send that data securely to the cloud.
Yes.
Also, you don't really trust these guys, right? Because you don't want your data to be spoofed. You don't want
big security issue here.
Big security issue. And in your personal area network world where you're pairing your AirPods to your phone, you don't really have that problem because you trust your AirPods and you trust your phone, and these are both devices you own. But in the sort of like world where you have sensors on the ground and your
There's
data
a lot of
lake,
ground noise. There's a lot of noise going on.
absolutely, and you want to make sure that when the data arrives in your cloud, you want to be pretty damn sure it came from that specific sensor and it wasn't tampered with, right?
Yeah.
So what we do at Blecon is what we try to solve that kind of like complexity and abstract it from our end users.
Right. So you've got a really good graphic, which we'll share when we we edit the video. You've got a really good graphic that goes from sensor to, let's call it a gateway, to then let's just say through the cellular network to get to the cloud, or however you communicate, whatever that process is. So, is what you're saying is that when you at every step of that, from a security point of view, there is a potential threat.
Absolutely.
So every step, there's a potential security threat. I
Exactly.
think I've just made up a rhyming sentence. Anyway, for every step, there's a security threat. So, and what you're saying is you don't have to have those steps if you use Blecon. You just go from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, and anything which is in the middle can't like understand like the data, and if it tampers with it, we will know. So it gives like our customers assurance about the data integrity, but also like make sure that some nefarious so someone wouldn't be able to like spoof data which doesn't exist, things like that.
Right. Okay, so talk us through, because you have this thing called a Blecon hotspot. I don't know if we can see that on the camera. Can you see the Blecon hotspot? Oh, that one can. Okay, right. So we got this thing called a Blecon hotspot. So that's a piece of hardware that goes. Is that a piece of hardware, or is that a piece of software that goes with your system?
So the hotspot is a piece of software actually that can run on different things. This is one of the things that can be enabled as a hotspot. So it's what we call a hardware hub.
Right. So using existing infrastructure. So we've talked about those steps. We're saying there's a sensor, whatever it's collecting.
Yep.
Here it is.
That's
Chat to its gateway using that.
So the sensor, so that's our like bigger sensor, I guess.
The logo.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. My fault.
So it talks about Bluetooth.
Yep.
To one of these guys, and I think the beauty of our solution is that our hotspots can run on a dedicated like piece of hardware, but also on existing hardware such as
so it's taking
laptops.
existing infrastructure that would be doing this anyway.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so you don't have to spend like money and time trying to deploy new infrastructure.
Right. So your definition of a Blecon hotspot is infrastructure that already exists, that's already doing communication, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's call it from the edge, wherever, getting your data, sending its information via Bluetooth to infrastructure, let's call it a gateway,
Yeah.
that you would be using and doing that job anyway.
Yeah. So if you're in the corporate office, you have your laptops.
And then at that point, that's when it communicates with the field.
Exactly. With the cloud. Yeah.
With the cloud.
Absolutely.
Right. So one seamless process, one seamless piece of software that goes from collecting the data, sensor, using Bluetooth, going to what you'd call a gateway, whatever. In order for this one seamless process to go, you then have software sitting on existing, or I suppose they could choose their own hardware, whatever that gateway is, in creating their system.
Yeah, I think so. At the moment, like we have like that, hub. We call that hub, which is an OEM piece of hardware. It's a Linux thing, so it could run on some other Linux thing.
The same system will then take the data to the cloud.
Absolutely.
So first point that you made very strongly was at each of these steps, there's a security threat.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And what you're saying is if you've got third-party things that are all doing different things in different ways, every time that happens, like evolution, DNA, there's a chance something gets damaged, changed, which you don't know when it gets to your destination point. But what you're saying is using Blecon software with one seamless, always the same thing. Okay, so in terms of disruptive design engineers who are thinking, I want to create the next great system, I want to do the next best thing, you're actually asking them to make some very, very big decisions along the way, because they're going to be pushing aside established technologies and established protocols. So when you get asked that question, what do you answer?
So I think it's a classic build versus buy trade-off, right? And actually what got us to building Blecon was noticing a lot of companies trying to do that themselves as part of
Because it's
the
only
product
working
they are
parts, so you buy the working parts.
Exactly. So I think like on paper, you're like, oh, I'm just going to build a mobile app and my mobile app will carry data from my sensors to the cloud. And that's kind of like the first like level you would come at when you try to build something like that. But there are like a lot of moving parts. It's much more complex than this. So a lot of companies start on this journey and then they stop because they realize that, oh, my team building this infrastructure has become bigger than the team building my actual product, so it doesn't really make sense, or they fail because it doesn't really work. And even if they succeed, they've spent a lot of money and time, and they've managed and they got massively distracted from what they were meant to do in the first place.
Right.
So where we come in is we're like, okay, you don't have to build a mobile apps team. Like you don't have to build like a desktop software team. You don't have to build a gateway yourself, and you don't have to come up with a security model yourself. You don't have to come up with a connection.
Those are three big, clunky, infrastructure decisions, aren't they? I mean,
yeah.
Those are three big things you're going to put a lot of engineering resource and time and money into. And what you're saying is, if you have a one seamless process, because it's seamless, you don't need that.
Absolutely.
So it is the pitch, for want of a better phrase. Pitch is security and seamless integration.
Absolutely. And by the way, we enable a lot of customers who wouldn't be able to take that on.
No. I didn't mean
otherwise,
no.
right?
No, didn't sound right. No was an affirmation to what he was saying. I wasn't saying no, he was wrong. I was saying yes, he was right. Now I've got confused. Anyway, okay, so I understand that. Seamless, one integration means that you don't have to have all the things that you might have if you didn't have that seamless integration. Okay, last question then. They've listened to you. They buy into what you've described, because you've described everything that they see every day. So they understand what's going on. How do they now evaluate you? What's the next step for them?
So they can go to our website. We have a developer's website. So, and anything that runs on the devices can be downloaded. We have on the cloud side, they can create an account, and maybe I can hand over to Dan to talk a bit about that.
Dan, tell us about what happens in the evaluation process.
Hello, yeah. So, I think at this point, it's maybe good to recap
Please.
what we've talked about, just so that we can put it together.
Yes, please.
Right. So,
I only try and ask intelligent questions. I often fail. So I'm more than happy to be recorrected and sent in a proper direction.
so I know we've talked about quite a lot of things already.
Yeah.
But to recap, what we're building at Blecon is the fastest way to connect a Bluetooth-based device to a cloud product, cloud application.
Yeah.
So if your device is a sensor and your product is a dashboard of information, you can use something like Blecon to connect your device to the cloud. Now, the way we've done that is to turn the traditional pairing-based model of Bluetooth a little bit on its head. And what we've done is made it so that the relationship is between the device and the cloud. And the difference there is that the device can then roam seamlessly across what we call hotspots.
Yes. I'm glad you said that. Right. Okay,
And
good.
So everyone knows that to connect a Bluetooth device, you need to pair it to something like your phone.
Yes.
And that's fine for a device that you're holding on your person.
Yes, but you're saying it can be an agnostic relationship.
Exactly. It's now a one-to-many.
Yes.
Rather than one-to-one.
Yes.
So this device
I think that's
now,
a really important. That's a really important issue. Okay, good. So
this is what unlocks Bluetooth for IoT applications.
absolutely, because of historically, it's a one-to-one relationship. It's I'm paired with you, you know me, I'm secure. But what you're saying is, in the IoT world, it's going to be one-to-many.
That's right. Because that device might not be on your person, it might be integrated into building fabric.
Yeah, and Don talks big time about security.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And so we've changed the security model so that now, instead of being from the device to your phone, it is from the device all the way to the cloud.
Yes.
Meaning that no matter how that device is connecting, as in which hotspot it's using, you can be sure that that data is secure. It maintains that privacy and resistance against manipulation all the way from that device to the Blecon network, to the Blecon cloud.
Yes. Right. Okay. Evaluation.
Right. So when you're developing a product, a Bluetooth-based product, you want to be able to keep your focus on the value that your product is adding to the marketplace.
Yes.
And so you want to be able to think about, what's my product actually doing? You know, is this a sensor? Is this an alarm? Is this a health device, right? And so when you're evaluating a Blecon-based approach to this, you can then focus on the application that you're delivering, knowing that Blecon is taking care of the connectivity. And with looking on our developer information, for example, you can see how, as a product designer, you can see the options on how to integrate Blecon into your device.
So, in evaluation, you've got your legacy, I take it MCU, whatever it is that's sitting in the system.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting data, and you want to get it onto so you want to either download, so I take you download it, and what's the interconnectivity, easy for me to say, interconnectivity, how does that work?
Yeah, so we got a couple of options there.
Yeah.
You mentioned legacy products or devices.
Well,
that
I've got
already
something that exists
Right.
today, and I'm using all the things that you're saying you don't need to.
Right.
So I want us to go, okay, that's a big statement. Right, let me play with it.
Yeah, so you've got an existing device, maybe it's an appliance, maybe it's a large sort of piece of equipment.
Yep.
Now what we offer is actually something that's a little bit like a cellular modem, but for Bluetooth.
Right.
And you know, the point of a cellular modem is that the identity and security are taken care of completely. You don't have to think about how is my data getting to the right place. And we provide a similar thing like that for Bluetooth. We provide a firmware image that can be deployed onto a Bluetooth chip, and instantly it acts a little bit like a cellular modem. It gives your device, your product, a global identity.
Is that how you do the one-to-many thing?
Yes. This gives it the identity, which then matches the identity in the cloud.
Right. Can you just repeat that? Repeat that, because that's the bit. That's the key bit.
Yes.
That's the key bit. That's the rip. I'm listening to it. There might be many key bits, but that's the key bit that solves that one-to-one, one-to-many bit, and that's how you do it.
That's right, in the sense that Blecon takes care of that global identity.
Right.
Which is then used as part of the Blecon network to securely link that device to the cloud.
Yes.
And in there is all the cryptography, the protocol, the error handling.
Right. So that suggests to me, though, they need some hardware to do that, or does that just replicate itself on the chip that you download it onto?
Yes, so as I mentioned, there's a couple of options.
Right. Sorry.
Either you add another chip to your product.
Yep.
And you can call that the Blecon chip, for example, the
Yep.
Blecon modem. Or you can actually integrate it directly into your own chip, depending on if it's compatible, if it's possible.
Right. It'd have to have cellular connections to do that, though. So that's already have to have cellular connections in order to do that bit.
Not necessarily, no.
No?
Because, if let's say you've got a product that's already supporting Bluetooth using classic pairing technology,
Right.
you can then upgrade that product with a firmware upgrade in some cases,
Right.
to now support Blecon. If the hardware is compatible,
Yeah.
it's an evolutionary path to
Right.
sort of say we're going to add Blecon software to this device, and now Blecon is going to take care of the security and then device orientation.
Right. And then when you do that, last question, because it's actually been a very long chat, but I think very valuable.
Yes.
When you download that bit of software, does it also include turning your already existing gate? Does it Is that the bit that already communicates, or did you have a separate bit of software that sits there?
So Blecon provides the apps and the software that run on those hotspots.
Right.
So the Blecon hotspot, in many cases, is an app that you deploy to an Android, iPhone, laptops, tablets, point of sale devices. You install that app and it instantly becomes a bubble of connectivity, providing this secure relay to any device in the region.
Right.
We also provide a dedicated hardware gateway, which is what we can see here, which does exactly the same thing.
Right. Okay. So please, I'm saying this at the end of the interview because you've already watched it, but if you want to go back to the beginning, as though we were doing the interview backwards, key things here are Bluetooth, one-to-one technology.
Exactly.
Blecon, 1, 2, however many. Nobody necessarily could be thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Currently today, you have protocols and steps that you have to go through to get to your cloud from your sensor. Don explained how every time you do that, there's the potential for security issues.
Absolutely.
But if you only use one protocol, platform, whatever you call it, platform protocol,
It's a layer on top of
yeah,
classic Bluetooth.
you stop all of that, and you can download that from blecon.com, I'm sure.
That's right.
Go and play with it so that they can then trust you like a device would. You'd almost think
Exactly right.
you know what I was talking about, wouldn't you?
Exactly
You'd
right.
most think that I knew I was talking about. Easily fooled. So that you can actually believe what you're saying. Because you are asking design engineers with legacy infrastructure to ripple that up to get your 80 zettabytes of data, which is where we started, from source to cloud in a completely different way.
We invite these designers to try out Blecon and have a chat with us to see if it's going to be simplifying their deployment of their devices.
Thank you. The biblical Don, and if you ever want to know why he's biblical, it's because he's Don a nation. That's why he's biblical. But I'm sure he's biblical in other ways. And Dan,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
much.
Very good.
Hey, yo, where my engineers at?